Jai Radha Ramana, Jai Jai Radha Ramana, Jai Jai Radha Ramana, Hari Bol.
How does Hinduism deal with the LGBTQ, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community and gay relationships? So what's Hinduism's perspective on anything other than heterosexuality in relationships? Well, it's an interesting question because on the one hand, Hinduism is a religion and a tradition that is rooted in the most basic truth, which is everything in the universe is pervaded by God. There is nothing and no one that is not pervaded by God. And so by definition, regardless of your sexual orientation, regardless of your gender identity, regardless of any of that, you're divine. It doesn't say the entire universe except homosexuals or except transgenders. Everything else is divine except them. It doesn't say that. It says all. And all of the prayers and all of the teachings are over-emphatic, over-emphasizing the oneness, the inclusivity, the divinity of all. And so there's nowhere in that you could get a wedge in and say, well, except for these people. So everything else is divine except these people. It's not there. It's all divine. That's on the one hand, at the most basic fundamental core. On the other hand, though, it's definitely not a tradition that in a societal and cultural level is nearly as open to non-traditional ways of doing most things, sex and relationships being just one of them. It tends to be a culture that's very rooted in tradition and that holds a lot of reverence and respect for that tradition, and that is not eager at all to swerve from tradition in any way. And specifically when we look at issues of homosexuality or issues of differences with regard to sex or gender identity or relationship, the difficulty and the dilemma comes with another core tenet of Hinduism, which is we are not our bodies. We have bodies. We are soul. We are spirit. We are consciousness. And one of the most fundamental teachings is all of the suffering in the world comes from this false identification with the body. Because I identify with my body, with what I look like, with what my color is, with where I'm from, with how much money I have, what my relationships are, all of those things with my emotional state, because I identify with that, I suffer. I suffer either because internally I'm simply judging and competing and comparing and wishing that I looked like so-and-so or had so-and-so's job or whatever, or literally because I'm acting on it. I see something and I feel greedy. I feel angry. I feel lustful. And so I act. Well, the repercussions of that act are going to bring me karmic fruits. That if what I've done is acted out of greed, out of anger, out of lust, chances are the fruit of that tree is not going to be quite so sweet. And so then we suffer the repercussions of it. Not because we were impure, not because there was something wrong with us, but simply because I identified as the body. So if I identify as a sannyasi, a renunciant, and I look over there and I say, my God, she's got that great purse. I wish I had that purse. I wish that were my bag. Well, okay, so suffering number one, instead of thinking beautiful, divine, holy thoughts, I'm thinking thoughts of greed and comparison and longing. And so internally already I'm suffering. If I act on it, and when her back is turned, I grab her purse and I've stolen it. Well, then when I get caught and thrown in jail or fined or whatever the legal system of my city might be, well, I'm going to suffer again. Now, none of that says I'm an impure person or a bad person. But what happened was, due to my false identification with the body, I identified with not having something that she had. I decided that if I had that, I would be better or more or full or enough or satisfied or all of the things that we crave being when we identify just as the bodies. And I got fixated on the fact that it was that purse that stood between me and satisfaction or enoughness or happiness. So I took it. And the same is true if instead of the purse, it was any one of 100 other things that I did that the religion would, look down upon as an ignorant act. All of it causes suffering. So here's where we get into the homosexuality situation. Since the ultimate goal of life is to realize I am the soul, not the body, anything that is rooted in simply bringing pleasure to the body is something that's going to be looked down upon anyway. So when the whole purpose of our life is to transcend the calls of the body, whether it's physical hunger, whether it's thirst, whether it's fatigue, whether it's pain, this is why, as we always talk about, this is why we have practices of fasting or staying awake all night, or why Puja Swamiji's guru had him standing on one leg 11 hours a day. To transcend the calls of the body. Not that you're never going to eat again or sleep again, not that Puja Swamiji was never going to walk on 2 feet again, but simply to really, really give the deep message, I'm not the call of the body. Body says eat, but I'm fasting, I don't, and look, I'm still here. Body says sleep, but I'm staying awake all night in meditation. Look, I'm still here. Body says have sex with this one, but I've taken a vow of abstinence, even if this one happens to be my husband. Well, but maybe we've taken a vow of abstinence for a night, a week, a month, a year, whatever it may be. Maybe we're on a holy pilgrimage. So I don't. And what that teaches us simply is, I'm not the calls of my body. Whether the hunger is for food or for sex or for sleep, by not giving into it, it creates a very, very, very deep impression in our psyche of you are not the body. Now again, that doesn't mean that we don't go back to our normal lives. But sex is something that is really seen in the culture as something for the propagation of the species. In your childbearing years, husbands and wives have sex to have children. That's the whole point of it. And that's why after having children. The culture teaches you move into the Vanprastha ashram stage, eventually into the sannyasa ashram stage. So you move away from those things. So the dilemma becomes, when we have a relationship in which there are not going to be any children from it, in which all it is pleasure for the body, achieving nothing, gaining nothing, but simply pleasure for the body. It's going to be something the religious teachings are going to say is better to be avoided. Because what you're doing is reinforcing, I am the body, I am the body, I am the body. When the emphasis should be transcending the body. And I share that because I deeply believe that that's the reason that the culture is not so embracing of homosexuality, is because what you've got then is a relationship rooted simply in pleasure for that which I'm supposed to be transcending. And the same is true, by the way, for heterosexual, non-transgender relationships. Once they've had children, if a married heterosexual monogamous couple went to a guru and said, you know, we have sex all day long. We love it. We can't get enough of it. We do it everywhere. Well, I am sure, I mean, I've never heard it said, but I am sure that that guru would say, you know, that's not really such a good idea. That's not what you're put on earth for. You really need to go beyond these things. Go higher. Go beyond it. Go beyond the calls of the body. And so it's not just a denigration of the non-traditional forms of relationship. It's really an advice against giving in to the call of the body at all when it doesn't have a purpose. I mean, we have to eat food. We have to drink water. We have to sleep at night. At some point, Puja Swamiji had to put his foot down. But sex is something that's optional. And so, if it's not serving the purpose of children, this is where they tend to say, move beyond it. And the other last point about that, which I've mentioned in here before with other questions, is there's a very deep teaching about the energy of the body in the Hindu tradition, which is called ojas. And it's literally the light, the strength, the energy of the body. And it is said that through the sex act, that when you literally release in sex, that what is being released is not just bodily fluids, but actually ojas along with it. And so it's also taught that the way to stay healthy, the way to stay vibrant, the way to stay shining is to preserve that ojas. So again, even if it were a married, heterosexual, monogamous couple, the religious teachings would say, be careful, you know. Hold on to that as much as you can. Don't lose it, it's precious. So that's I think another reason that there's such condemnation for the relationships and the sex that seem to be non-productive and just for pleasure. Is again, you're losing that energy of the body. So I think that's why you've got this very dichotomous, you could say, perspective within the religion on it. But it's been something that's only been talked about publicly relatively recently. I mean, I know historically it's there, but in terms of public domain, it's been relatively recent. And so we're watching as the culture gets more and more open, as the culture gets more and more understanding of even what it means. Even the fact that it is scientific, that people are born like that it's not some sort of a perversion, but rather it's just a difference. And so I have faith and hope that slowly there's going to be even more openness to that in the name of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is a core root teaching, which means the world is a family. And so if we're pushing away any group of people, it's hard to turn around and say, well, the world is our family.